little bit I was kind of like, oh, I'm not super good at it. I don't really want to play anymore.
What if I make a mistake?
Mile 20 of the marathon was when I hit my runner's wall.
I was nervous because it was very high. I felt like I was gonna fall off.
Coaches are so important, like even if it's not a coach from your team.
When we do our boxing lessons, my dad makes these funny voices. In the red corner, we have Leela Grace. Ding, 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 ding.
I'm really inspired by watching my sister. She barely could dribble and stuff. And then I remember one day I was like, when did she get so good?
You don't really need to have a whistle or be in the sidelines. A good coach inspires you.
Never lets me quit.
Who's a good example for me and helps you become a better player. My coach is my cousin. My friend's parents.
My mom.
My older sister, Yuzu.
My friends.
My dad. Everyone can be a coach.
What a great way to start. Everybody can be a coach. Good morning, afternoon, or good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. And let's begin this fantastic event. My name is Megan Hill, and I'm delighted to be your host for today's special edition webinar, celebrating International Day of the Girl with ICOACHKIDS, Nike, Youth Sport Trust International, and TAFISA. We're going to explore the topic of girls in sport with a fantastic panel, more specifically, how we could support girls to fall in love with sport. If this is your first time joining us, please be sure to ask any questions that you may have of our panel using the Q&A function here on Zoom. And you can also communicate with your fellow audience members by introducing yourself via the chat. This is a recorded session and will be available on demand via the ICOACHKIDS YouTube channel following the webinar. Finally, you will get some small polls and surveys that will pop up throughout the webinar. For example, this one hopefully here. And please be sure to share your views when the opportunities arise. So let me first explain how the session is going to run. We will first do a bit of scene setting about this extremely important topic, then introduce our panelists. Following our panel, we will speak to a very special guest and then conclude by asking questions to all of our panel, which have been submitted using the Q&A function. We know that only 1 in 3 children get the physical activity that they need, and girls face more challenges in getting and staying active than boys. In fact, girls are dropping out of sport at twice the rate of their male counterparts, facing complex barriers to sport, which include a range of social, cultural, and economic factors. To help us unpack and discuss this area further, we've assembled an amazing panel of coaches, and to introduce and chair this panel, we have Viv Holt of the Youth Sport Trust International with us. Viv is a former teacher of PE and a coach of 30 years, and now is an international trainer of coaches and community workers who work with kids. Hi Viv, it's great to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm delighted to be here. And what a great opportunity to discuss such an important topic. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our panel. First, we have Houda Loukili. Houda grew up in the Netherlands and started kickboxing at the age of 11. And since that, she's followed her passion to become a trainer for Favela Street Foundation. Her knowledge and expertise means that she really knows how to reach kids and get them moving literally, I understand. And welcome to our second panel member, Ambokile. Ambo was a basketball player and has followed his passion of helping young people develop and reach their potential. This has been achieved through a 15-year career where he's worked in primary schools, secondary schools, community, with youth offenders and at national league level. So welcome to Houda and to Ambo. We're going to kick off straight away with Houda and Ambo and start with our questions. So let's start with you, Houda. How do you prepare yourself before a coaching session, and why is that important to prepare?
Thank you, Viv, and thank you to be here with all these people. Preparing the session is very, very important. And the thing what I do is I always look at the starting point of my group that I coach. I individually look at every girl on how far they are, and not only with sports, but also their personal situation. As an example, a girl who might be great at basketball lacks maybe in social skills. So while training, she has some issues communicating with other girls. And knowing this beforehand helps me and the coachee with solving the issues or going through challenges. So a lot of things also happen naturally based on feelings, and that's why it's always able to improvise. But it's necessary to prepare the session, and so.
Yeah, great. And I love the way that you explained that it's not just their physical or sports skills you're looking at their social skills as well, and the importance of preparing for what might occur when you're there. Brilliant.
Exactly.
Ambo, welcome. What about you? How do you prepare yourself for a coaching session, and why do you think it's really important?
First of all, hi Viv, and hello to everyone who's tuned in. Preparing for a coaching session, I start with an end goal and what I want to come out the session with. So, for example, it could be I want to make sure everyone leaves with a smile on their face, which means they've had fun. And then I also have some key goals in there, very similar to Houda in terms of metacognitive skills, social skills, or any barriers that they may face. But I kind of plan for a good ending and then work backwards from there, really.
Brilliant. And I think both of you have highlighted the importance that even though you have starting points and end points, that you're considering the needs and the development of every kid individually throughout the session, which is great. That's inclusion at its best. So let's have another question then. And Amber, I'll kick off with you on this one. How do you make new kids feel welcome and safe? Getting them through the door, how do you make them feel welcome and safe?
I think mainly by coming across welcoming as an individual. So we know that the first session is always daunting, and that first step for them even walking through the door, or the fact that they got in the car or however they got there was, well, you know, they had just loads of uncertainties with it. So breaking that barrier down by being welcoming already, you know, high fives, hello, what's your name? You know, what do you like to be called? All these different things, so that you get a better understanding of who that individual is or individuals are.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ambo. Houda, what about you? How do you make them feel welcome and safe?
Right away, taking them into the group by doing an introductory round. It's very important for me. And just like it's written in the coaching guide, I try to make, for me, it's especially the girls, feel safe and welcome by have open vibe, and also celebrating differences, because the first experience is always essential to girls for coming to the next sessions. And if the first is good and everyone feels comfortable, they will most likely come back. So there's a lot of time and space to talk with each other and to see what they like, and to do that in the class.
Brilliant. And you mentioned there, you mentioned the Made to Play coaching guide, and there's a real important section in there which talks about connection. Ambo, you talked about how you need to create that connection and make people feel really welcome when they arrive and get to know them. And Houda, you talk about not only yourself, but also how the girls or the group get an opportunity to talk to each other. And that in itself is really important. And what about making it safe for them? What does that mean for you? How do you interpret that? What about you, Houda?
How I make it safe?
How you make it safe for them?
Yeah, that you can be who you are. So it doesn't matter if you talk a little bit, or if you talk not loud enough, or if you don't want to look at the teacher, or maybe it's in the beginning a little bit scary for you or something. So the most important thing for me is that the boy or girl or the kids can be themselves. And so I can give them a safe space. And also for me, it's also important that no one else can come without they asking to me. So when I say to the kids, I'm the teacher, or someone else is a teacher, so it's very important that that the team is always the same. And if there's someone else who is coming, then I first of all I let the kids know, and then they can choose if they want it or not.
Brilliant. So you talk a lot there about letting them be who they are. And Ambo, you talked about high fives and celebrating everybody. Two really, really great strategies to ensure that kids feel safe and welcome. So Ambo, this is one I know you've had experience of, and I'm really looking forward to your answer on this one. How does your experience of coaching girls differ from your experience of coaching boys?
Yeah, so it's my experience coaching boys is quite extensive in terms of it stems from many, many years, and the girls is very, very small in relation to that. But the opportunities that I've had when I'm coaching girls, I act a little bit goofier. So I'm more open to letting them just be themselves in terms of, you know, I'm not your teacher in terms of I do everything right. I'm allowed to make mistakes as well, and so are you. So it's kind of giving them that opportunity to not to overthink when they're doing something and it has to be perfect the first time. I kind of give them that freedom and create that positive environment when they're doing it.
Great, that's a great one, because we know girls sometimes feel they have to feel perfect all the time. Social media does a lot of that, and they feel they have to live up to a certain image. So that real evidence of allowing them to make mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes and be themselves, is a great one. What about you, Houda? How's your experience been coaching girls as boys?
I have now 17 years of experience with coaching boys and girls. So 17 years ago, I started with this. And personally, I don't see for myself when I'm for the group, I don't see a big difference, because the most important thing is that I'm the same person. So that's for kids very important, that I'm authentic. So that's very important for them, and so I treat them the same. But maybe it's also because I'm a female, so maybe it's a little bit easier also with girls to connect with them. And if I had to think about one thing that's really different, then I would say talking, because my girls and I love chit-chatting. So and of course also boys, but with the girls I'm chit-chatting a lot.
Yeah, that's great. And girls do like to talk. And I think you've said before that you give them opportunity to talk to each other as well in the session. But I also like the fact that you talk about that some things are the same for boys and girls. But the really important point you made is that you don't treat them differently. They're equally valued.
Yes, that's very important for me.
Yeah, good one. So here's on, Amber, I'm going to ask you again first, since that you've had a lot more experience working with boys than girls. What would you have liked to know more about before you started coaching girls? What would have helped you?
I think Houda touched on it a little bit as well, is that there aren't that much difference. So it was, I think I built things up in my head when I was going into coaching a girls session. Oh, do I have to make sure I'm perfect? Do I have to make sure all these things are aligned to make sure that the session is okay? And if, for example, someone didn't feel like doing it, it's fine to give them the space, just as you would if it was boys doing their session as well. So there isn't much of a drop off or a difference with the two. And I think when I started coaching and when I got my girls team, prior to actually doing this first session, it was a bit of anxiety in terms of, you know, I got to make sure I'm catering to a girl's needs, when really they're no different to boys as individuals.
Okay, that's a good one. But I think what you're alluding to there is that you had some a vision or expectation of what girls wanted, and perhaps knowing a little bit more that, you know, there are certain things that are just the same, or certain things that you built up in your mind which are just not true.
Yes.
Maybe you've got rid of your anxiety before you started.
Correct.
Yeah? Fantastic. What about you, Houda? What would you like to know more about before you started coaching girls? Or is it just a reflection of you and your experience as an athlete?
So I only can look at myself and at the time that I was starting. And the most important thing and advice for everyone is to be yourself. So also when you are on the group, and maybe it's for your new, or you are a new coach maybe. So it's most important the language with the kids. This, I think, the highlights. But using your ways makes it more personal, and the kids won't push through. And I think the other thing what's important, and we can do that better, is to stay in contact with parents. Because they are the ones who decide or the kids come back to sport or not. And especially with girls, the parents are very special in this. And I think sometimes we forget them. So that's my advice. And for me, it was to stay myself also when I'm coaching.
Yeah, and I think just to clarify that a little bit, of course, you've come through as an athlete yourself, so you've experienced it. But I'm going to go back to you, Ambo. When you started coaching a girls' team, did you connect with parents? Did you think it was important to connect with parents, or has that not been an issue for you?
Absolutely. I think connecting with parents in general is important, but it wasn't really an issue, because my first priority was to connect with the girls in front of me, the individuals, and make sure that they were just as relaxed as I was. And again, I know I keep saying it, but that positive environment that they can feel safe in, and they can feel free to make mistakes, because we all can do that, and we clean them up as we go on.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to stay with you, Ambo, for next question and use your experience here. So if we look at a new coach who's just beginning to work with girls, what advice or top tips would you share with them to help them?
I would say have a plan, have an outcome of what you want at the end of the session, and then make sure that everything that's built around that outcome has something fun and engaging linked to it.
And would you also say perhaps that what you had said originally, the ability to connect to them and talk to them is a really good starting point for a new coach? Yeah,
and again, that starts right at the beginning. So that connection, making them feel like they can come to you if they are feeling a little bit off, or if they're worried about something during the session, and giving them that freedom to welcome an environment that they can tell you, I don't want to do this, or, I feel more comfortable doing it a certain way.
The top tips from you are: have a plan and a clear outcome, make them feel safe and welcome, connect to them, and make it fun and engaging. You
made that sound so much better than I did.
No, great advice from you. Houda, what about you? What are some of the top tips or advice you give to a new coach working with girls?
Yeah, I think a lot is, you said a lot of things. What I can add is make them feel that they matter.
Yeah.
Make them feel that they can give their, that they learn to say no if they don't want to do things. I'm always starting with a check-in. So not only how do you like this, but also how's your life today? What's your mood? So are you happy or not? And can I help you with something? So also not only the sport thing, but the whole package that the kids can take with them. And fun. It's very, very important, and that we can when they have busy times at their home or at school, that we are flexible. I think it's very important for a coach to be flexible. So when a kid cannot come on 5 o'clock, but later because they have something very important, then it's okay, and not we need to be flexible. That's what I want to say.
Brilliant. So checking in with them. Love that. How are you feeling? Because that will affect how they'll perform and how much they enjoy the session. Connecting on that personal level. I love that little tip about being flexible, because we don't know what other things are affecting them outside. I think for me, one of the things that I learned as a coach was to think more holistically about competition when coaching girls, because not all girls want to compete team against team. Some girls are quite happy competing against themselves, i.e. improving themselves, or working in a team to be a better team. So thinking about the types of competition we give them sometimes might be quite useful. Great.
Exactly.
Both of you there. Well done.
And one thing, Viv, it's very important, is to give them compliments, and not only some compliments, but the compliments you mean, and also about what are they doing. Not only you say, oh, your hair is very beautiful, but also you can put the ball very good to your mate. So
absolutely. Brilliant. Okay, Houda, you can start us off on this next question. What are some of the coaching strategies or techniques that you use as an experienced coach that really engage with girls?
I think I have said a lot about the strategy. Yes, and to engage the girls, that they can come to you every time they need, and not only at the session. So if they need you on the other day, it's okay, and then I am there for them. So I think that's very important to not only be a sport coach, but a coach for everything.
Brilliant.
And that they feel free, that they can come every time to me when they want.
What you're saying is a really important point. We've talked about connecting and creating connection, but being genuine, authentic, and someone that they can rely on. Great answer. What about you, Ambo? Are there any strategies or techniques that you think have really engaged the girls you work with?
I would say have a democratic approach in terms of giving them sense of ownership of the session as well, but ultimately you're in control.
Brilliant.
I've got a little example that I have with my daughter. What I do is, because she's the youngest of 3, and she likes to be very, very bossy. So what I do in the mornings, for example, is I give her a choice of socks. She can wear the grey socks with the blue bow, or the grey socks with the purple bow. Either outcome, I've already chosen the outcome, because I don't mind either sock, but she feels empowered because she feels like she's had a choice. So it's kind of similar when I do my coaching. I have different ways that I want the session to go, but ultimately they always end up at the same destination. So when I give them, the girls or even the boys at times, that empowerment of giving them a choice of what we want to do next, I'm giving them a choice. They feel like they're steering the ship in terms of the session.
Love it. Great example with your daughter. It's about giving them some ownership and some voice to help shape the session and what they want to do.
Yes.
So I'm coming on to the final question now, and the final question is about the end of a session. So let's start with you, Ambo. What are your go-to activities at the end of a session where you can create a buzz before the girls leave, so they go away on a high and they're roaring to come back to you next session?
I have a go-to game that we go to. It's called Golden Child. So what happens is it's a mixture between basketball and baseball. So that we have runners and then we have batters, but the batters are shooters. So they can get each other out whilst they're running around, and they really enjoy it because it's not just a knockout game, but there's a particular golden child that's selected on each team that can save everybody, and it brings the session right back. So you've got to make sure you have enough time around 10 minutes before you finish to do so, but they really enjoy that game because it's kind of a sense of coming together, and can this person that they've chosen save the rest of the team if they're out, and vice versa. So that it's kind of a really good go-to game that we finish on.
Great example. I'm going to take that one from you. But what I really get from that, you do a great fun activity. It brings everyone together. They feel great when they leave and they can't wait to come back. What about you, Houda? Have you got an activity that you do or something you do that really makes the girls feel great?
We start always and end in a circle. And with sharing their thought about the lesson, and after that we do a checkout about how they are feeling when leaving, and the end game is always different because the girls or boys can choose the game that they want to play, and after that some girls like to hug, some want to give a hand, and some just wave. So I'm open to everything they want and need, and won't ever force anything into someone.
So again, another activity where everybody feels part of something and something they want to come back to. Thank you, Houda.
You're welcome.
As you can probably have guessed, we unfortunately have not been able to get Elena from South Africa with us today. But I know Ambo and Houda have shared some fantastic examples, and they've got very, very interesting stories. So if you'd like to find out more about our panel members, please head to @ICOACHKIDS World on Twitter and Instagram, and you can see their full bios and their full stories. Thank you. I'm going to hand you back to Megan now.
Thank you ever so much to all of our panel members for their fantastic contributions and insights, and to you as well for hosting this. Keep the questions coming in via the Q&A function, and we'll take these to the panel quite shortly. And now we're going to hand back over to Viv to introduce our very special guest.
Thanks again, Megan. It's special guest time. So I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Rachel Yankey. Rachel is the most capped England player and Arsenal ladies legend. She's also managed London Bees and represented Great Britain in the 2012 Olympics. She is a true pioneer of the women's game, and we're very excited to learn more about her experience growing up with football. So welcome, Rachel.
Thank you, Viv.
Delighted you can join us. So let's get straight into it. How did you fall in love with the game of football?
Oh gosh, game of football. I think I fell in love with sport first. I think my mum was very open to me and my older brother playing lots of different games and doing lots of different sporting activities. I remember us doing swimming, which I wasn't so keen on, but gymnastics was really big when I was small. We both, myself and my older brother, were at a running club, but I think it was football that really gripped me. Football that really, gave me that buzz and made me want to go out and play. So always down the park, always at the end of the street, wherever there was someone with a football, you could find me.
That's really interesting, because what you talk about there is a really supportive family that encourage you to play sports. And you could really have gone to any sport, but football, for many reasons. Some of the reasons you just gave me is because you can just go to the end of the street, or you can go to the park.
Yeah, I think so. I think with the other sports, I mean, gymnastics, I really liked, and I was really good at it. But then I didn't like what we wore. And I know that seems really sort of trivial, but I didn't like wearing the leotard and stuff like that. I think I was only young, but I was sort of maybe a little bit body conscious. With the running, I used to run for Highgate Harriers, and I used to do the 800 meters, which I'm sure many of my teammates would not believe. They probably thought I was more of a sprinter, but and then at one time I was put in by a coach to do the 1500, and it was just too far for me. And it was at that point that I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I think where my mum was really supportive is that she allowed me to make my own choices. And didn't sort of push me or force me into one sport or something that I didn't want to do. And I know that when I joined definitely a girls team, there was a lot of the dads at the football games instructing their daughters on what to do and how to do it. And because my mum, she knew about football, her dad sort of took her to games and let her watch football, but she wasn't that bothered. All she cared about is that I was having fun. So she was just happy that I came off the pitch with a smile on my face, and that was the biggest thing.
Rachel, you made some really good points there about why you ended up in football. You talked about the leotard and the clothing you have to wear in gymnastics, and that's not trivial, because it's one of the barriers that put girls off sport, what they have to wear or how the body looks when they're playing sport. And then you talked about pushy parents that are pushing, a coach making you do something you didn't want to do. So great examples of why you didn't choose those sports, but I can tell the passion's there for football. So I want to know a little bit more now. Can you tell us a bit more about your experience playing football from, I think it was from about 8 years old?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the story always comes up, and now that I'm an adult, I get a bit embarrassed about it. But as a kid, I didn't really see that it was wrong or anything unreasonable about it. But two friends of mine that lived across the road, they were joining a football team that one of the parents at their school had set up. They asked me if I wanted to join. I was like, yeah, brilliant, let's go. And then they sort of said, oh, well, it's a boys team, there's no other girls. So I think it was my friend Lawrence was like, well, my initials spell out the word Ray, or the name Ray. So he was kind of like, well, we'll just call you Ray and we'll just pretend. I had short hair, when they used to go to the barbers, I used to go with them. So I was very much a tomboy, and that was just me. So pretending to be a boy and joining the team was quite easy. The manager, he knew that I was a girl. He really didn't have a problem with me playing. But pretty much all the other players thought that I was Ray, this young boy playing football. But I think that's the thing with kids, is that really it didn't matter whether I was a boy or a girl. It was just whether I was good enough. And I was good enough. I obviously just pretended, and it made it a whole lot easier for me as a person. I just felt like I fitted in to the boys' game, to everything that they were doing. And when I got slightly older and wasn't allowed to play in that boys' team and was moved on to a girls' team, I felt really out of place, which kind of doesn't make sense. But I felt like in the boys' team, I could kind of be myself, where in the girls' team, I felt that every opponent that we played against, and parents that were on the sideline, they said some quite horrible things, to be honest, because I looked like a boy. The way that I played football, everybody sort of said, you play like a boy. Why is this boy playing in the girls' team? So I took a lot more abuse and probably hid a lot of things from my mum at that point, playing in the girls' team, where I felt a lot more freer playing for the boys.
Wow, that is a powerful story, Rachel. And I mean, you talk about it in such an open way, but that's a dreadful thing, that you have to pretend to be a boy in order to play the game you love. And hopefully we've moved on significantly now. Girls get the opportunities they deserve at that young age. But I would say that one positive you're saying from all of that is your level of skill and your abilities developed during that time that you were playing as Ray. and actually perhaps expectations of girls in a girls' team weren't high enough for you because you were outperforming them?
Yeah, I mean, well, the girls' team that I went to, I was pretty amazed at how many girls, one, how many girls played, and two, how good they were. But at the boys' team, it did, yeah, I did everything, and the coaches didn't treat me any differently, because sometimes people treat girls differently or go easy on girls. I wasn't treated any differently to any other boy, and I kind of liked that. You know, if we I don't know, failed at a task, and the forfeit was doing press ups, so I was down there doing press ups, and no one was saying, oh, do, you know, girls press ups or easier press ups. I was doing exactly the same as the boys, and yeah, I felt part of that, so I quite liked it.
Yeah. And you made a really interesting comment in that you talked about the consistency of approach of the coach, that you weren't treated differently, which kind of leads me on to my next question for you is, you'll have had a number of coaches throughout your playing career. What are some of your favorite memories of a coach that you've worked with?
Oh gosh, I think I'm often asked who was the best coach, and I find that a really difficult question to answer, because when I think about what I liked and the qualities of the coaches, the majority of the ones that spring to mind are the ones that really cared about you as a person. Obviously, we go onto the football pitch, we all want to try our best, we all want to win, but you know, there's still the person in you, and the coaches, you know, it sort of spring to mind that if you weren't, for instance, when I was at Arsenal, Vic Akers was our manager there, and I had the opportunity, this was, women's football in this country has gone a little bit different now, but it's fully professional now, but it wasn't at one point. And then I had the opportunity to join Fulham, who were like 2 leagues below, but they had gone professional. So I left Arsenal, a bigger club, a bigger name, to join Fulham with what I thought was, and what I saw was a bigger opportunity, because I was going to be a professional. But Vic Akers always said, you know, basically he didn't agree with me going there and didn't think it was a good move for me, but I was always welcome back. And that to me sort of really pinned down the fact that, you know, he cared about me as a person. He'd always sort of, you know, speak to me whether I was playing for him or not. So I think those elements, and my first coach in that boys team, Tony Chelsea, he could have been like pretty much any other coach and said, no, this is a boys team, you're not joining. But he saw no reason. He was a painter and decorator. He wasn't a football coach. He was a volunteer who created a team because his son wanted to play. And he saw no reason that I shouldn't be able to play as well. And, you know, he treated me no different. He probably protected me more because when the leagues and everybody said that I couldn't play, it was actually him that went and found me a girls' team to play for, because it wasn't social media and it wasn't so easy to find out information. He found me somewhere. He made sure I got there on the first day of training. So really, without him and the fact that he actually cared about the person and wanted to see me succeed, you know, who knows if I would have actually gone any further into football.
Great example. And I think that's been echoed throughout the whole of this webinar, because Houda talked about the individual and the social care, and Ambo talked about connecting and valuing the individual as well. And you're talking about coaches looking at you as a person, not just a football player. So I've got one final question. I could talk all afternoon. I have one final question for you. You've had such an illustrious career, too many things to mention, really. What are you most proud of, Rachel?
Obviously, when you walk on the football pitch, you want to win, you want to score goals, you want to play well as a team. So those things you aim for. But I'm probably most proud of, I set up a grassroots football team, and I set up my own coaching business, working in Brent and Harrow, which is in London, coaching in primary schools, and coaching both boys and girls to try and just teach them the values that sport can bring them, their life skills, no matter whether they were any good or going on to succeed or be a professional. But just saying that, you know, there's so many life skills that I've got out of football and which you guys could too. And in 2014, I was awarded an OBE for football and also services to the youth game. So that's probably the proudest thing, because I wasn't expected. I wasn't trying to get that. Where on the football pitch, I was always trying to win or trying to score a goal. But that was given and recognised that myself and all the other coaches that we worked with, we'd actually done a really good thing.
Wow. What a great way to end our conversation. Thank you for all you do for the young people in London. Rachel Yankey, OBE, thank you so much for being our special guest.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Rachel, for your brilliant insights. That was really interesting to listen to, and to you again, Viv, for facilitating the conversation. So for some questions and some answers from the panel, we're taking these from the Q&A section that have been put onto Zoom. And so I think the first question came from Kiara. Kiara asked, have any of the panelists coached or played in mixed teams? And how do you empower the girls to be included and to thrive in these settings? So Houda or Ambo, does anybody?
Yes. Both. So I've also always done kickboxing for myself, and mostly with men. And when and the important thing is that my coach was the same for me as for the boy. And when I coach mixed groups, I make sure that they are treated the same also, and that I don't underestimate them beforehand, that they can do something. Because I want to learn young people to set their own limits. So when they can do something, they can say it to me, and I don't want to say to them, oh, maybe you can do this. So that's my question. That's my answer. But if you have other questions, so let me know.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. That's great. Ambo, can you share some insights about the player ownership again? So the nice story you had about your little daughter choosing her socks. What's the best example of players taking ownership in your experience? Can you share some examples?
Yeah, it would be again, this would need to be planned out and kind of have directions of where you want to go. But it would be asking the question of, these are the drills that are coming up next, or these are the activities that are coming up next. What would you prefer to do? Should we shoot first, or should we do dribbling first? So give them the option of which order they want to do it, because sometimes they might want to finish with the harder one, or they want to start with what they think is the harder activity. So I kind of give them an open option.
Perfect. Thank you, Amber. And Rachel, we've had a question from the audience asking, who is or who are the most inspiring people that have been on your journey?
Oh gosh, that's hard. I think you have lots of different people to inspire you in different ways. I mean, my mum, because she allowed me the choices. You know, even when she probably thought that's so wrong, she didn't say it. She allowed me to find out that it was so wrong. I think Vic Akers, because Arsenal manager, just showing that caring side, but yet still there were standards there that you need to make sure you uphold and keep. So yeah, I think coaches and people like that. As a footballer, I when I was watching, my favorite footballer was Ian Wright. So I always wanted to try and be him. So he set a standard for me to try and aim to, which I never got to, but never mind.
I don't think that's true. Brilliant. Okay, thank you. And Houda, another question for you. When you're working with the Favela Street Foundation, what does it look like when you're working at your very best as a coach?
Sorry, what do you say? What should look like?
What does it look like when you're working as a coach in that environment?
Okay, that's a big question. So what do you want to know? I have at this moment I have 2 programs with Favela Street in Amsterdam West, and sport and personal development go hand in hand in the programs. One program is at the primary school. The girls, there's only girls. They come to us and they never went to a sport club. And we have a program for youngsters 12 until 17 years old. We also use them for the younger girls at the primary school. So the big girls, they are coming to coach also the younger girls. Yeah, that's what we do now. But yeah.
No, that sounds really interesting. That's great. And one more question for the panel. What role do coaches, teachers and parents play in helping girls fall in love with sport? Anybody can take that one. Yeah, what role do coaches, teachers and parents play in helping their girls fall in love?
Okay, Ambo, go if you want.
Did you see me come off mute then? Is that
yes.
I was going to say a supportive role, an encouraging role to always make sure that they're there in one way, shape or form. I think Rachel said it best when she was talking about the support that her mum gave her. And it wasn't a case of, no, don't do this. I need you to do this. It was more of do what's right for you and you work it out along the way. But she'll always be there to support and help encourage her if she decides to carry on or go into a different direction.
Fantastic. Anybody else got anything to add? Okay, I'll move on. Next question. Do you feel like mixed teams should be promoted more? Again, open to anybody.
I think on both. No. For me, for me, it's important that we look at the group. So if the group of kids want to play mixed with the boys or girls with boys, and if they want it, okay, then we can do it. But if they don't want it and they really need to sport, so then it's okay to have only girls in the club, in the sport club. So that's my answer.
Perfect. Anybody else?
Is it me again? I think it's age and ability driven. So, for example, you find that when they're younger coming up, the pathway, it's okay to be mixed. And until they start to kind of veer off into almost like the elite pathway or competition pathway. And then it gets reintroduced again when they're older. So, for example, very popular in Manchester is mixed netball. And that's with the older kind of group. So people that have played netball and never played before and they want to get into it, it's usually mixed. So again, I think it's a mixture of ability and age.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you ever so much to the panel for your answering the questions and to all the questions that came in on the chat function. So once again, thank you to Viv, Ambo, Houda and Rachel for their fantastic contributions today. Be sure to head over to the new ICOACHKIDS website, ICOACHKIDS.org, and here you will find our Connect section where you can join the Coaching Girls interest group for the conversation to continue. In this community, we'll be discussing all things coaching girls, and we look forward to hearing your experiences and insights. This will be a learning space for you to work together, exchange experiences, and find answers to your questions. So come join the global conversation, and we look forward to seeing you there. Finally, we would love it if you would be so kind as to complete the final survey, which will either appear on your screen now or shortly afterwards. And thanks as always for being part of the ICOACHKIDS family. And on behalf of all of us here today, thank you and stay connected with ICOACHKIDS.org. Thank you.